everybody, so I am back today and I am doing Inquisitorial QA episode 5. So I kind of liked the format last time where I was actually working while doing this. So I think I can only do simple tasks when I'm answering questions, so I'm just base coding this Musket and Tomahawk's house. I haven't really shown how the scheme that I'm doing yet for this one, but it's just going to be yellow, black, and white with a black roof and yellow and white trim and some black accents with a different colored door. So I'm just going to lay on some yellow on this thing while I am doing the answers. So actually my video is doing sort of a weird thing here. Okay, I don't know. Alright, I think it's okay. So I have first question from Mike at Croangelicilicis. Great Q&A. Come to salute. Fantastic buying opportunities if that's what you're after. Loads of traders there and a great day out. Question for next time. Do you have any projects that are completely finished, or am I talking ridiculousness? Well, I do, and oftentimes a finished project means I'm either not playing a game anymore, and I have finished painting and I'm not buying anything more for it anymore, or it's just something that was just for painting, you know. But most often, and I think maybe folks can sympathize with this, but most often when you get into something like a game, no matter what it is, there's usually expansions or additional units or armies or something that's always keeping your attention, so you're just buying and buying and buying, which means you could view that project as just never finished. You know, just these guys right here that I got for, I showed this guy recently, just this Victoria Miniatures mini, it just for In Her Majesty's Name I got it. That was just a troop that I just painted, and it's just one unit and it's complete, and I'm not buying any more. I don't really play the game that much, if at all. I'd like to play more, but yeah, like I'm not. And so basically, you could view that as just finished. Trying to think, the Wrath of a Shardalon board game. I set out an objective to paint that out a couple years ago and just finished it and completed it, and there you go, it's done. But yeah, like my 40k, my Eldar, I don't know if it'll really ever be finished. As long as I'm playing 40k and as long as I'm adding units to it, it's always going to be ongoing. I don't really have that much right now on my queue for Eldar to paint. I'm sure I can find some things, but I don't have much for sure. And so it just really depends on how you look at it. But for the most part, I always keep things in the queue for stuff that I want to continue to play. So like Musket and Tomahawks, Bolt Action, Saga, 40k, both Marines, probably a couple of models for Eldar, but mostly Marines. The Marvel game, all of these things I have models for to paint. It's a little daunting too, but that is definitely the case. So yeah, I guess in some ways like wargaming, where you can actually add units to things, it's never truly complete in some ways unless you stop playing, or it's really just a finite thing, like you're just painting a model just for the sake of painting the model. So yeah, it's a good question, and yeah, I think that's probably something that we all deal with, the concept of there's no finality to this. That could be a good thing too. So alright, so Idic Beer, question for next time. Talking of avatars, mine is Captain Kirk. Do you think I should change it after what you were saying? Not sure I could bring myself to do it, hee hee. So there was a discussion in the last Q&A where I talked about how I got permission from the artist to use their artwork for my channel. And then I encouraged folks that did something similar to pursue, something similar and getting like permission and, potentially not using stuff that is other people's artwork and things like that. Now, I saw that question come through, Nick, and yeah, I can't imagine you changing that either at this point, but my thought is it really just sort of depends on what you're using. I mean, if a thumbnail that's intended purpose is for like perhaps forum thumbnails or it's created for display and to be used in a community as a symbol or something like that. It may completely have just a different set of rights to it as far as it being available for public use. I'm not really sure. I'm suspecting that it is the case, and so I probably wouldn't worry about that one too much. But like if you had, let's say, a piece of artwork that was drawn by an artist that was not necessarily for circulation, you couldn't find that thumbnail, on a board in a list of thumbnails that you can use for something, and it was just somebody's like piece of artwork, and it just happened to be Kirk's face. Maybe it's owned by the the franchise of the cinema. Then like you might be potentially crossing some lines. I'd be interested in what other people think on it. I'm definitely not an expert on it. I just took it upon myself in my instance in evaluating the scenario and the artist and where I found it, and what sort of permissions seem to be in place in using it, particularly if some of it is just planning for the future too, right? Like I probably, with the usage of my channel, nobody probably, just with the popularity of my channel, which isn't, I don't consider it my channel to be, in the grand scheme of YouTube, to be that popular. And so, because we're like a bit of a niche hobby, I would just say that I probably may have been fine if I just continued on as is, as a non-paid channel with my sort of popularity. But I enjoy my channel, as I know you do too, and I have no idea where it'll go, and I have no plans. But I just thought I should have did something earlier about it. But if I want to continue using somebody else's artwork, that I really should maybe think about now, like even when I'm still kind of low in subscriber and just, don't really know what I want to do, but just maybe make sure that they're okay with the fact that I use it. And so that's why I did that. But I think your sort of cartoon of Captain Kirk, which I think I may have seen that, on forums where people like use it as sort of their avatar for their just messages and things like that. And because of that, I'm thinking that you're probably pretty safe in that sense. So that's my thoughts. But really, I'm no expert on like the usage of artwork and things like that. So okay, so next question. Athleth, Tristan, what would be the 2 questions you would ask the Emperor if you could have a quick chat with him? Now, I see these questions come through, and I try not to pre-plan. And to be honest, I saw that one come through, and I sort of had an idea a month ago, and I don't even remember what it was. Like, I thought, oh, well, what would I ask, That's actually, when you're really into something, and that's sort of like, what would you ask God, like, if you were to meet him, like, kind of question. Because if you're into the 40K, and you're actually asking from the perspective that this person is alive, and so they are what they represent, that's kind of a hard thing to think about. And so, I'm kind of going to take a bit more of a, to some degree, I think I would probably take a bit more of a humorous approach to try to understand the humanity of the Emperor, connect with the humanity, with a being that's on such a, majestic scale of power and influence and might. And so, I think I would do one humorous question and one serious question if I only get 2. And so I'll go with the serious first, even though I'd probably open up with the humorous one just to sort of break the ice. The serious question I would say is, considering he's, created so much, and so, defended humanity against all these xenospecies, orchestrated the Great Crusade, basically created the sort of guiding light that allows space travel, united Terra initially in order to be able to kind of go on as one species in space, created all these suns that are just superhuman beings, the Primarchs. There's just so much. You could go on and on. I would just say, like, what do you consider to be your greatest accomplishment considering all of these things? And so that would be, like, from your perspective, out of all the things that you've done as the Emperor, what was your greatest accomplishment? That would be my serious question. Now, I think to sort of lighten the air, although this might be a bit contentious, and he may actually, like, storm out of the interview, like kind of like the celebrities do, I would probably say, you've been really prolific, like in your family. You know, you have like all of these sons and Primarchs, so many. Yet there's been no mention of like any woman in your life. You know, nobody at all has like any inkling that there's an Empress. And so really, I was just kind of wondering, like, you know, is there a lady, you know, in the Emperor's life, you know, a special someone, perhaps even influencing in the background that we don't know of? You know, Emperor, there have been people that have been talking, you know, like, because there's been no women whatsoever that anyone could speak of. And so this is a really good time just to sort of maybe touch on that. And just kind of mention, you know, just what's going on, who is it, you know, and all this stuff. So, yeah, so that I think maybe that would be my sort of tabloid-esque question that I would also ask, as if I'm representing the media in the year 40,000. So, okay. So, next question. Actually, Ralph is next on my list, but Ralph, I'm going to put you at the end because I know that you asked to see something, artwork in my room, and so I'm just going to actually move the camera, like, as my last question. So, yeah, so I'll do that then. Victor Kez, or Q's, what is that faction? What is the faction in 40K that you will never collect, and the faction that you hate most to play against? Interesting. I'm going to answer the second part first, just because never is such a hard word to, you know, to think about. I don't even know the answer for that one, and then never, like, as I'm talking, I'm going to have to think as I'm going. But as far as the one that I dislike to play the most against, which sort of the implication is that maybe I have a tough time against them or something. That's the way I would take it. I would say Necrons. Now, I know in the current meta that, like, Eldar and Tau, like, you know, there's certain ones that folks have the hardest time with. I haven't been playing standard 40K. I play more Kill Team now lately. I have played some, but I don't play a tremendous amount lately. And so I'm not really, the whole meta with the current Tau and stuff, I've not felt that like others have. And so when you ask me the question, you know, what is the team that you have the hardest time with, I have to think back to games in the past where I just have had, at certain points in the meta, end of 5th edition, 6th edition, and I remember I had just some serious trouble with Necrons, like particularly when they were the first ones to get a flyer, if you guys remember. I believe they were the first to get the flyer, and it was tough, like, because you know, it was pretty much, there wasn't much Skyfire out there at that point, and people were just kind of almost ignoring it because it was just not a whole lot you could do. And then the fact that I remember they had some really cool deployment rules with that flyer where they could deploy the Necron warriors and stuff, as well as, you know, shoot you to death. And so I had a hard time playing against them, and so I'm not going to say that I wouldn't play, like I hate playing against them, like I won't play against them, you know, that's not true. I would play at any time, just continued to try, but I remember being frustrated at times. And so I'll say Necrons for that reason, even though that might not be the case today. And now, as far as what is the one that I would never collect, I think I'll run down the list a little bit and then pick one. I think I did think of Dark Eldar. Now, I could ally them with Eldar, and it's not, for me, the Dark Eldar aesthetic isn't what I go for in my Eldar. And so I would almost have to go completely different with them. And as much as they do look nice and have cool aspects to them, I just don't think I would end up doing it. I think I would end up always just doing Eldar and never Dark Eldar. Because I just like the Eldar enough that maybe in some ways I view myself as a bit of a purist for Eldar, in the sense that I like all the Eldar stuff and the actual pure Eldar. And so I in some ways I probably not go for the Dark Eldar and almost on that alone. As well, like Imperial Guard, it's kind of very a lot of it, I feel like, is painting closer to like World War II kind of stuff, and even though a lot of it does look futuristic now, and the models are really good and they're improving. Well, I say in my opinion, they've improved some of the designs over time. They've continually improved them, and I do like the Sentinels and certain aspects of them, but I can't see myself probably doing a Horde style Imperial Guard army. And so from that perspective, I probably would choose that one as well as one that I likely would not play. I talked about the Tau in my last video, and I talked about how probably the only way I would play them is if Kroot were invested in more, you know, and like as their own sort of detachment, mini faction that I could do. And so I guess they wouldn't be low on the list, because there's some situations where I would consider painting up and fielding Tau. Sisters of Battle, given that they haven't been getting much support, I don't, you know, see that as something I'd likely be doing. And Harlequins would probably be the same situation as the Dark Eldar, just very close to Eldar, and because I'm such into the Eldar, I probably wouldn't be going for them either. So yeah, so I think that's probably, I think that's probably where I'm at. Like, I'd probably, if I had to choose one that I'd be the least likely to do, I'd probably say Imperial Guard, actually. Is probably the least likely that I would actually do. So, yeah, good question. Questions. So, next one. Genk Master. Did those prints come mounted and framed? If not, please talk about the research you did to decide on how to mount and what glass frame you chose. Are they UV protected to preserve the colors? How did you decide on a place to do that for you? I've recently acquired some prints and original artwork that I really want to display, but I am fearful of them getting faded. What I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to pan back, because I have a sheet of paper that I've saved for the information on the my frames and my glass and all the stuff for those, in case I want to get another one. I want them to match, and so I'll just be able to share that info. Okay, I'm back. So, honestly, I didn't do like a tremendous amount of research. The prints that I got, they are limited edition prints from GW, but believe it or not, the Black Library, they're actually fairly affordable to print themselves. I mean, for a limited edition print, I think I spent $55 for like an actual limited run, high quality print, in my opinion. I think the prints are really high quality. Like, from the price of the print, from that perspective and the quality that you get, I have like no reservations at all on spending the money on them. And so, in a lot of ways, despite that it's like a really cool picture and it's limited edition and all these things, the amount of money I spent on the print itself is relatively low as compared to what I spent on the frame and the actual glass and the getting it framed. So I actually just went to Michael's, and at Michael's they have museum quality glass, and so I didn't even go to the highest. I went one below in the category, and I did speak to the person there, and I'm just trying to look here. The you know, like, basically the matting and the framing, you just pick out like the mat and the frame, and so from that perspective, like, you don't have to do a whole lot of research. It's really just the colors that you want, and I did get it so they actually have a border, you know, that accentuates the color within the actual picture, and so you can pick like these matte borders. For those of you that are into art and know about framing, like, you'll know about these things, but I'm not an expert at them. The actual, and I'm just looking at the sheet that I have here from them, they list it as a 3/16 acid-free foam core backing that they use for the actual print to go on. Now, the glass itself, trying to look at where they put it on here, whether it's on the itemized receipt or whether it's on this sheet that I have here, because it just says description it might say, you know, honestly, I'm looking at this and I can't even tell from the receipt the actual name of the glass that was used. Because they have some things in here, and they do mention a thing called Tempest C9556. I'm wondering whether that is the type of glass that was used. Although then, you know what, I think this other line says Masterpiece 18-inch by 24-inch. I think that might be, this Masterpiece might be referring to the actual glass, because it's one of the more expensive items on there. So, essentially, when I spoke to the person, they just said that these are your different qualities. Now, the museum quality ones have UV protection, and they're meant for museum quality pieces. And so, in talking to them and getting some information about it, it seemed to me like even the next grade down below the best, which was still museum quality, seemed to fit the purposes for it. You know, I mean, really, for the, I think I said it was $55 for the print itself. The fact that it's going on something that has UV protection that's considered museum quality, to me seemed enough. Going up like a whole nother level in the museum quality just didn't seem, you know, prudent. Although that's just a matter of opinion. It seemed like this was, you know, they didn't say it was going to deteriorate because I wasn't getting the best one. I don't remember what the advantages were of getting the absolute best for the frame, and so, or for the glass, for the print. But whatever it was at the time just didn't seem like it was actually worth it, the extra money in addition. Because I already spent a fair bit on the glass for the second level, and for the printing and the mounting, or the framing and the mounting and everything itself. And so, yeah, so I hope that answers your question. So it was just Michaels. Of course, with Michaels, you do want to, you know, do this on a coupon, like they have the framing sales and stuff. That really makes it a lot more affordable. Because, like I said, I don't know, but I think I spent like, oh well, I should have it here. I think I spent, I just painted my light with holding the brush. That's what happens when I multitask. I spent like $150 just on framing that, and getting the glass and everything. And so it actually is a pretty significant investment, you know, for a piece of artwork on your wall. Granted, I mean, it's all relative. I mean, you can spend thousands of dollars on artwork, original artwork, you know, from local artists or whatever, and so it just depends on the way you view things. But either way, I do think that it can be pretty pricey. Now, I really quite like these prints, and so it's something that you'll have for many years, and so it's just, yeah, just I guess just it's really a matter of opinion. So, but definitely I'd suggest, like you're talking about, being conscious of those things, and you know, getting all the manufacturer's information on the glass and what you're using. Talking to if you're going to go to a frame place to have it framed for you, speaking to them and about the materials and making sure that it's not going to harm the type of piece of artwork that you have. These ones are sort of like a fibrous textured print that have paint, but you can see the three-dimensional texture on it. I suspect that they're actually computer sprayed. They're not original pieces, so they'd have to be. It's clearly I'm showing how I'm not an expert on art here, you know, and the various ways they produce art on a mass scale. But my understanding is that most artwork today, even when it gives that brushed look, it actually is sprayed and just made to look that way. And I suspect that even a limited edition run of these $55 prints that I've got are definitely of that category, where they're mass produced and made to look that way. But that's okay with me because I like the way it looks. I like the fact that it kind of looks like it's been brushed and has that texture. I just think it looks cool. So, all right, great question. Tattoo for you, Richard. says, what other games have you thought about playing? And your dream getaway with the wife. Well, that first question's a doozy because there's just so many that I've thought about playing. I'll just mention that because I play a lot of games now, and many of you, another relative thing, maybe some of you think I don't play a lot that watch the channel compared to how many you play, and some may think I play way too many in comparison. But because I do view that I play a lot, I think you could probably rack up the number of games that I consider to myself miniature games to play, whether it be ones that are pre-painted or not. I probably am in the area of 8 right now, and so that's a lot for me, and what it means is that I don't play all of them regularly. I play some more than others, and I don't play all of them regularly. So because of that, I think more about playing the games that I already have. Like I'm more thinking about painting that I have in the pipeline for games that I already play that I'm not painting right now, that I need to get to painting. And I'm more thinking in my mind about when I'm going to start playing a particular game I haven't played in a while yet. So that's kind of where my mind is primarily at, over starting new games. Now, having said that, I'm just as weak as many, and I do see the games that come out, and I want to try them, and most often, they're games that are not part of a genre that I already play. So I'm not experiencing it, and that's what makes it attractive to me. But sometimes the opposite is true, and it's a game that comes out where I have everything for, and I like that genre, and I just want to try a new rule set. So both are legitimate reasons why I might be looking into something new. So I'll mention some that are games I don't currently play, or maybe one that I just started, and I'll just mention it. But so one of them that I'd be interested in playing is Savage Core, which I've not played yet, and I've done sort of a heads-up video that many of you may have seen. The rules aren't even released, but I like the miniatures and I like what's being talked about. I just like the fact that it's a pulp-era sort of fantasy savage world, sort of format that looks really cool. Like the idea of like cavemen and Atlanteans and explorers and dinosaurs and like all that kind of stuff just seems really cool. So I really would like to try that one when it does come out. As well, I would like to try, I'd like to try a Western game someday. Something I've been keeping my eye on, actually Mike Cruangelis, I've really been keeping an eye on his channel with a lot of his painting and his terrain for Dead Man's Hand. But I like the idea of doing a Western game because I haven't before. I like the idea of doing a Western skirmish game. I think most of them are, but just the idea of painting up the Wild West and just doing that would be really cool. Now I'm struggling over a rule set for it because I just have all these sort of requirements in my head. Like I don't want it to be overly complex where you have to like roll for every single quarter section of the body that a bullet might hit, but then I don't like it to be so simple that many weapons aren't even in the game, like that you would see in the Wild West. Like they may have 3 or 4 styles of guns, or and no bows or something like that, or rules that just completely leave out a whole section. I'll admit, I like a quality product when I play a game. Some of the superficial things that others may scoff at that I about needing that, but wanting a color rulebook that's hardcover and is a nice product that I want to spend my money on versus a sheet of paper that it's really poorly written in really small font and it's black and white and it just seems really dated. And those kind of things mean something to me, even though they're not the bulk of what makes you really like a game, take it to the next level like the game. It sort of sets me off when it's just sort of not a great quality product. And so I don't hear people talk about that too much, and maybe it's superficial of me, but I just find that I like a quality product to spend my money on it. And some rule sets, when I was looking at the Wild West stuff, I just didn't like it get very far just because it didn't really get past the cover in some cases, or the contents in the first couple of pages. And so, yeah, and then the other obstacle for it is just the terrain, because it's not something that I've played before, and the biggest investment that I find getting into a game in the end is usually the table. Despite all of our talk about models and things, if you really want a good quality table and it's not acceptable for you to play on a poor quality table just to get it done, to say that you've played it or feel like you've played it. If you want to experience that game as best as possible, then it's actually pretty expensive, and actually time consuming, because if you're not spending money on good quality terrain, then you're actually you're just spending a ton of time making terrain. So that's a long answer with the Western, but really just Sharp's Practice, the second version, because I already have stuff from Musket and Tomahawks. I think I'd like to try that, just because it's a different set of rules that focuses on the leadership of your models differently. And I think it would be kind of cool to be able to use my Musket and Tomahawk stuff for a different rule set. And now that they've updated it just recently, it's like a perfect time to potentially try Sharp's Practice, the second version. So that would be the second one. Those of you know that I'm like into the Marvel stuff, and that I've actually purchased the Marvel game, but I've never played it. That's probably number one on the list. I mean, I actually want to play that because I've never played it and I do own it. I'm still kind of painting the minis, although I have enough now to try it out painted. But I still need to kind of get my board together, and so I'm working on that actually to be able to do that, so I can actually start trying out the Marvel Universe Miniatures game. So that's probably like on the top of my list on things I haven't played yet, because I have it and own it. I also want to play Star Wars Armada. Now, I have done the demo, like with the starter set, and I have actually purchased it. And so that's a game that I actually want to play. And part of that is I just have enjoyed X-Wing so much that it's really opened my eyes to Fantasy Flight's products. Just because I just really liked what they did with X-Wing. So I'm actually trying Armada. Now, from what I've seen of it so far, it's more involved in certain ways. From a strategic level, and even just game time, like the length of game, than X-Wing. It's definitely like slower fleet battle versus dogfighting. I like both of them. I don't have a preference from what I've seen so far, but because the Armada is kind of new to me, that always has that eye candy or just newness feel to it that makes you spend more time looking at it or something, just because it's newer to you. And so I'm really liking what I'm seeing from Armada. And that one doesn't require any painting, and so not a whole lot of work. It's pretty much you open it up and you play. And so other stuff, trying to think. Oh, well, I missed a big one that I really want to try, and that is I want to do more fantasy sort of wargaming as well, as not just the 40K sci-fi or the Marvel sort of pulp and thing or comic book, but I want to try more fantasy. Now, that I purchased that Orcs and Goblins stuff last year, and I'd really like to try it for either Mordheim, Age of Sigmar, or Warhammer Fantasy, like all three of those. I'm kind of interested in painting up the Orcs and the Goblins and using them for that. I've really enjoyed watching some Age of Sigmar battle reports on mini wargaming. I found it actually pretty cool, just to be able to throw your stuff down real quick and play. I've also been watching all of the Old World Wars videos on mini wargaming. I watched a little bit of the Ninth Age too, Once Bitten's stuff on YouTube, and I like that as well. And so I'm interested in that stuff. And Mordheim, I think it was Genk Master that just cringed when I called it Mordheim last summer. I never forgot that. It's Mordheim, and it really looks cool to me as well. And I never really played it. I do have printed off the rules, and I'm hoping that GW is going to bring that one back, as a lot of people are. And I'd probably pick it up for that reason. So this summer, one of my goals is to get painting on my Orcs and Goblins that I said I was going to do last year, and I said I kind of put it off to do Saga. I just got really into Saga, and we were doing the historical club and things, and I wanted to get the Saga going. So that's why I actually just shelved it. But I never really lost interest in it, and so I want to do that. And then your dream getaway with the wife. Well, that's interesting. My wife and I don't always want to go to the same places, and so when I answer the question, I almost kind of wonder whether it's like, is it my dream getaway with the wife, or is it our dream getaway, like where we both compromise and kind of both want to go to this place, but it's neither of our number one. That might sound weird, but as I think it was Naughty Gandalf Gaming had mentioned, he sympathized with my comments last time about getting approval to do things when you're married. Sometimes things are just about the compromise, right? And then sometimes it's about neither of you compromising and allowing each other to have your first pick on things, so you don't have to compromise. Well, we both would like to go to Japan. I'm not sure that it's either of our number one picks, but that would be probably really high up on the list if we both chose a place to go. But as well, we both kind of want to go. We went to Hawaii once and loved it. Being really close in Calgary compared to when I was on the East Coast, it's easier and more affordable to go to Hawaii than when I lived on the East Coast. And so we have been there once and brought the kids, and it was probably one of the best vacations I've ever been on. It's just like paradise, honestly. And I just love the culture there too. Like, people are so friendly, and it's just a great trip all around. And so Japan, Hawaii, I personally really like to go to the UK, and so I don't know, those are probably them. I'm not sure what the absolute dream is. I also want to go to Denmark and Norway and Iceland. Those are high on my list, but not necessarily as high on hers. So it's kind of tough. She'd probably prefer to go to Italy and France and things like that. So dream getaway, maybe we'll just say back to Hawaii. I think that's probably very safe and very reasonable and likely to happen someday. So, okay. Well, I think that's not it. I actually have to answer Ralph's question because I was going to actually move the camera for that. So Ralph says, my question this time is regarding the prints behind you on your wall. I couldn't quite make them out, but they look very stormy and almost apocalyptic. What are they? Why do you have them on your wall? And what do they say about your tastes? Any chance at a closer look? Well, I started talking about them a little bit. And they were the ones that you were talking about, Ralph, that in Genk Master's question, when I was talking about how I was preserving them and the texture on the print. I'm going to move the camera now, so I'll just fade out for a second. So I'm holding my tripod here. These are Black Library prints, and so they're basically of Warhammer 40k. They're nice quality prints, in my opinion. This one here is the Damnation of Pythos. I truly chose it because I liked the picture. It's not because I've actually read the stories that were based in the Damnation of Pythos. I really liked, in this case, the usage of the greens and the blues. I really like the monster picture. I suppose it's a bit apocalyptic when you look at sort of these probably. It's either debris or drop pods sort of coming out of the sky. But there's this huge battle. This one looks like there is woods here, right, with birds and stuff. This one's more apocalyptic, and I have done a review and discussion on this print a long time ago on the channel, fairly long ago. Maybe it's a year or 2 years ago. But this one was my favorite print from the Black Library, and it's Pandorax is the name of it, and it's based on the novel Pandorax. When I had reviewed this print last time, I had not read Pandorax, but since then, and this is the cover photo, I have read the novel, because I liked the print so much I wanted to read the novel. And this basically is just sort of an invasion of a world where Space Marines are protecting it. And so you have actually an alliance between the Dark Angels, in this battle, and the Grey Knights. And so I believe this one is Drago. It's been a while since I've read the story again too, but this is the famous character within 40k, the Grey Knight Drago, I believe. I just love, you can take a look back at that video. Actually, you know what? I'll put a link in the description of that video if you want to see the video just on the print where I talk about it, because I kind of talked about it at length as to why I like it. But yeah, so I'm going to show a couple other things too, because I have a couple other things on my walls that are nothing related to this. And, what does it say about my tastes? In this one, 40k artwork is pretty much apocalyptic, post-apocalyptic. Well, it's apocalyptic. I don't know, not as much post-apocalyptic, I guess, but it is sort of grandiose and huge battles and very dramatic. And because I love the genre, it just speaks to my taste of loving that genre. I have them on the wall just because I really like them. I think they're high quality, and they just kind of pull at the heartstrings as to why I like the genre. But in the same way, and I'm just going to spin here, pardon me for spinning the camera, I'm actually now going to show some other artwork that I have on the wall here. Now, these are really, really inexpensive. Like, I don't know in Europe if you have stores like HomeSense, but they're basically big box stores that just have everything you want, like in your house, and so you can get like kitchen supplies and pillows and like all of these things there. Well, they have like a section for just things that you put on the wall, and these kinds of things are it's just wood with a print on it, and it really cheap. Like you're talking less than $20 in most cases. But like I saw these classic comic books like on these, and I just loved it. I mean, I just think it's really, really cool. I've always wanted to take my comic books that I have and frame them and hang them, but in a lot of ways this achieves the same effect for me, and it's even bigger for a vision. So I actually have this comic. I may have shown this on the channel too, I'm not sure. But this comic in particular has Blizzard, which is one of my favorite original Iron Man characters, and I like the original compared to what they've done to him later, this costume. And so the old Iron Man, you guys know how I feel about that, most of you. And then below that, I actually have an amazing Spider-Man cover with the Green Goblin, who I just painted recently as well. And so, like, what does this say about my taste too? It's just my liking for the genre and the old artwork, for the comic books. And so I like these, and so I kind of just, in my hobby room, just kind of throwing around things that have to do with my interests and the games. I haven't done as much as far as the historical yet, but I probably will. But I also have limited wall space, so I'm not sure. A lot of my shelving actually takes up, and display cases and, shelving for stuff like terrain and supplies. It all takes up room in here, and so yeah, we'll see. But that is it, guys. Thank you very much for the questions. I appreciate you putting them in. I know last time I kind of mentioned that I just wanted to get people's thoughts on whether I should continue with the series, what you guys think about these kinds of series, because they're becoming more prevalent. I'm going to continue with it. I appreciate those of you that ask questions. Please keep the questions coming, and I hope you guys have a great June. This is the beginning of the summer. I will be putting out videos as normal, but I hope everybody has an awesome June. And as far as the Q&As go, or the Inquisitorial Q&As, I will be back with another one in July. Take care, everybody.